Record. Hello, and welcome to Twin Bill podcast where two twins talk about the movies and stuff. I'm Jason Luna, joined as always by my twin brother Marcus Luna. If you can't tell by my t-shirt, we're talking about Howard the Duck. He's in a movie. Here's the Funko of his head. Woo! Looks better than on the movie. Ah! Now, how's it going, Marcus? Uh, as we're recording, the SDFC was eliminated from the playoffs last night, so that sucked. San Diego Football Club, for people who don't listen to soccer podcasts.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe give a few of my critical thoughts to this movie afterwards, but let's just dive right into our top two of our two segments on the show. The plot, Blitzkrieg, 1 cent at a time. So I'll get it started since I'm the quote unquote guest, despite the fact that I'm the guy who owns the Howard the Duck t-shirt and Funko Pop of Howard the Duck. This is the season finale, by the way. We'll talk about more about that later. Yay. All right. Yeah, later. Okay, all right. I spent a long time on this I won't preface every sentence, but I spent a long time on this sentence. So, Howard the Duck, an ad copywriter who lives on a planet full of ducks and used to be in a rock band, returns home only to be sucked off of his planet of Duck World by a tractor beam.
The tractor beam is based essentially a wormhole, and he gets sucked through the wormhole, goes through space, and lands in Cleveland, as he says it.
I'll use my turn to point out that also there's a guy who kind of sounds like Carl Sagan, who's like, "This is a big moment in time and space. It's Howard the Duck." And never shows up in the movie again.
Uh, a gang, for whatever reason, tries to bring Howard into a punk club, but he's not allowed, and he's thrown out.
Okay, I'll use my turn again. The inside the club is a band led by Beverly Switzer, played by Leah Thompson, playing Thomas Dolby sounding punk songs about how sad she is.
Once Howard's thrown out, he's wandering around a montage of the city of a couple making out. There's a very threatening girl gang. Howard's kind of scared, but he sees Leah Thompson being mugged and saves her with his quack foo.
Yes, and Beverly figures out pretty easily that Howard is confused and homeless and agrees to take him back to her apartment. Pronouns, pal.
At the apartment, he reveals what he did, which you already said. He falls asleep pretty quickly, and Beverly finds a condom in his wallet, which is very charming.
Yeah, opened or used. That's not my turn, but that's it. So in order to help Howard, they go to Phil, played by Tim Robbins. I might call him Tim Robbins later, for advice, and Tim Robbins just sort of says a lot of random crap about ducks that puts off Howard and Beverly as him being stupid.
Yeah, Howard is so mad about this waste of time that he shoos everyone away, including Beverly, and decides to go it alone.
I will add that in particular, when he shoos everyone away, it's because a group of school children think he's an exhibit at the Museum of Anthropology where Tim Robbins works. Yeah.
Uh, so Howard decides he needs to get a job. So he a very large person in the employment agency tries to get him a job. Howard's dressed in a very silly outfit when he's doing this, and then I guess you'll use your turn to what job he ends up getting.
Yes, it's referred to as a hot tub club. It resembles both a whorehouse slash place to have sex because there's a lot of naked people, and he's a towel boy there, and he refuses to clean a hot tub and effectively gets fired slash quits.
So he's walking through the city after this and riding the bus. He's getting a lot of attention. Then he walks by a television store that happens to be showing duck hunting, which freaks him out. And he eventually wanders back to the music club.
Yes, in the one of the most prolonged examples of overhearing a conversation, Beverly's manager has money that he's accrued that he's supposed to give her, but he'll only give her if she has sex with him. This makes Howard mad, and he attacks the manager. You can finish that if you want.
Yeah. He beats them up. Uh, they all scram, and he meets up with Beverly in her dressing room.
Yes, they effectively become best friends again, thanks to Howard getting the money and being nice. And also, sorry, Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins shows up and gets rejected for being an idiot who talks about ducks again. He's also dating a girl in the band, which doesn't come up very much in the movie again.
Uh, I guess Phil got a feather for studying at some point during this. Yep.
It's probably a few things to interchange in this scene because it's a ridiculously long scene. Beverly asks Howard to manage the band because she saw Howard noodling on her keyboard, and Howard refuses. This is back at the apartment, but yeah.
She's attracted to him and he's attracted to her. And she's very sexily dressed and they start kissing. But then Phil shows up with Dr. Jennings and another employee named Carter.
Mm-hmm. In a big exposition dump, Jeffrey Jones is like, "Oh, we fired this laser that sucked you off of Duck World," and Howard's like, "Hey, can you can you take the laser and reverse it and send me back to Duck World?" And Jeffrey Jones is like, "That's a good idea." And the scientists all leave and tell Beverly and Howard to go to the lab, which seems random, but yes.
In the van, I have in there that Phil did a on the waterfront joke with could have been a contender, I believe. Then Howard makes a Casablanca joke.
Wow. So Tim Robbins and Carter show up to the lab first and notice that there's no security guard at the gate, and the lab seems kind of like almost abandoned, and investigate further.
Uh, so an alarms guy with gets his face burned. Uh, Security and the cops show up, and the cops try to rough up Howard the Duck and assume he's in a costume, so they're trying to find a zipper.
I guess before that, to sort of what you were getting at, when everyone shows up, there's chaos, like a really bad accident just happened and people are burned and stuff. And also, someone tells someone, sorry, but that Jeffrey Jones was by the laser and disappeared.
Mm.
And then the cops show up, so continue.
Uh, I believe Beverly helps Howard kind of get away, and they run into. I misspoke. His name's Dr. Jennings. It's easier to use Dr. Jennings. But anyways, the but something seems off about him. He's acting weird and talking weird, and they manage to get to a car and drive off.
Yes, they do a very, for lack of a better term, Indiana Jones type stunt where they step on the gas and drive through chain link fence in the van. Don't do it at home, kids. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
While driving, he's clearly impaired, blabbering about evil, and that he's transforming. He keeps talking about the end of the world, and he's so impaired that he crashes into a outside of a restaurant.
Yes, they enter Joe Roma's Cajun Sushi, which is as funny as it sounds, whatever that means. And inside the restaurant, Dr. Jennings slash Jeffrey Jones reveals that he is now an evil alien overlord. And, okay, go ahead.
He explains that the same laser beam that sent Howard to Earth hit a region of demons, which I believe is literally what they say in the movie, and that a demon inhabits Jennings.
During a very chaotic sequence at the restaurant, Howard is confused to be an edible duck, which I suppose in theory he is, and they almost put him on the grill slash chop him with a chef's axe, or whatever you call that.
But kind of inadvertently, Jennings and the demon is giving Jennings powers. Kind of, his powers are kind of like, for me, like Raiden from Mortal Kombat. A lot of electric bolts type of things. And I think he frees Howard, breaks a lot of things. Let's go ahead.
I'm gonna take a bonus turn because you almost said it. He kidnaps Beverly and leaves. And then afterwards, when the cops are there, Howard sees Tim Robbins in a cop car, seemingly under arrest.
There's a scene in the truck that the demon causes Jennings now to have a worm thing that comes out of his mouth to try to get energy, and he gets some energy from the truck.
Yeah, this is the only sequence in the movie that's like a direct intercut, so it's kind of annoying. But so sort of meanwhile, Howard helps Tim Robbins get out of the cop car, and Tim Robbins conveniently has a, what do we call it, bicycle airplane,
I think it's a biplane.
and they take that to chase after Beverly and Dr. Jennings.
Jennings reveals his plan that the place with the most power is the nuclear power plant. So they eventually get there.
Mm-hmm. Uh, yeah, intercut's really annoying. But I'll just say this part then. Jennings puts Beverly in the trunk of a car and zaps a police officer to get by a routine stop.
Jennings pretends to go into a nuclear plant tour, but wanders off into a core and uses this to get much more power.
I think the cop thing might happen after the nuclear power plant, but whatever. Sort of a meanwhile, both racing to the laser, we get a long sequence of Howard the Duck and Tim Robbins in the biplane landing on a truck, almost getting caught by cops, going around corners, flying over water, etc.
Both parties eventually get to the lab. Jennings gets there first and has Beverly strapped down.
Tim Robbins tells Howard the Duck we cannot just rush in there and save Beverly because Dr. Jennings got superpowers. So we need to find the secret weapon that Tim Robbins conveniently knows about nearby.
My notes I have it, the nuclear disintegrator.
Yeah, it's basically handheld laser versus giant laser. Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah. They go to find the laser. That's fine.
Okay. You already said that.
No, but I didn't get the part where I said the part where Tim Robbins said, "Let's go find it." Sorry, just say something.
Okay. They go get the laser. They have to use it on some moving car thing. Howard tries driving a range, but Jennings sends him off course with like a wind attack. Phil deflects a beam with a piece of metal and almost kills himself and gets knocked back because it's like a break and let you go.
Yeah, so basically they shoot Jennings with all this stuff, and Jennings is fine now. But lo and behold, Claymation Tiny Rancor from the alien planet is now separated from Jennings, and yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's this big scorpion alien thing. Latches on to Howard, and the scorpion guy's plan is to use the laser that got Howard and him to Earth to get more of the demons, to get the rest of the demons to Earth so they can take over the world.
Mm-hmm. And after Beverly, and to an extent, Philzy / Tim Robbins say, if you destroy the laser, you can't go home. Howard shoots the laser with the disintegrator anyway, and the laser blows up.
Uh, I think you skip before that. He hits the beast first with the laser, and he kills the attacking beast scorpion thing.
Yep. And then, kind of postscript, I guess. Beverly's band is playing a concert in a big amphitheater now. Howard's the manager. Phil is no longer an anthropologist, but now a tech guy at a concert. Howard accidentally gets pulled on stage by a pulley and plays guitar with the girls as we fade the credits.
The very Thomas Dolby sounding song.
Yes. I guess save our critical remarks after our top two favorite segments on the show. The criteria. So I guess the guest, quote unquote, who didn't pick the movie goes first on both of these, right?
So it would be you.
Yes. Let's talk about the concept of this movie, the core idea or the premise. It's kind of a mixed bag for me. Obviously, big fan of the comic book. That being said, the comic book is almost unfilmable because a lot of the comic book, I don't know how much you read of it, it's very satirical about the world building and like how dumb comic books are. Not just, it's not a beginning and end story. So I feel like making a movie about Duck whose comments on the real world is not inherently plausible, and this movie sort of struggles with that, where it turns it into more of a generic action movie where everyone accepts Howard for who he is very quickly. It's a very confused movie, so obviously not a great concept for a screenplay.
Yeah. Probably gonna get to tone later
Yes.
on.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah, the concepts seem simple because it was a comic book that George Lucas happened upon and he liked it and thought people would like it. And as you said, it kind of went through development hell to figure out how to do the duck, how he talks and everything, let alone the technological restraints that existed in, what was this, 86?
Yeah, somewhere like 80, 85, 86, 87 in terms of production, release, blah, 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 but yeah.
And it's tricky. You pick a character like Howard the Duck, fine, but then what story do you tell? Because it's more, Howard the Duck is a fun concept, but there's no, I don't know, maybe there's a specific story you could copy, but I don't think they did that here.
No, this is definitely not based on anything in the comic book. And I wanted to briefly note that Steve Gerber, who, is a genius and is very satirical minded and wrote the comic book, gave notes on the screenplay when he read it, and they were summarily ignored because the Yuck and Cats, the Lucas's patsies or whatever, were really dead set on getting this movie made as opposed to making it clever or interesting. Okay, Marcus, you can talk a little bit about characters. How is the development and how believable are the characters?
I mean, the setup's not very believable. There's no such thing as wormholes, and there's no such thing as talking ducks. So it's not really believable.
But I mean, like in terms of like I guess the emotional or the if a guy was Howard the Duck, would he act like that?
I mean, you get from the beginning that he's a very dirty-minded guy. He has a play duck and stuff like that. So he's not the greatest guy in the world. Yeah. His character development makes sense. He learns to. He doesn't know what humans are. Beverly's nice to him and tries to take care of him. So throughout the movie, he tries to help her personally and professionally,
Yeah.
and so and you can see at the end, because throughout most of the movie, he's self-serving because he wants to get back to Duck World or whatever it's called, but he's willing to sacrifice that for the friends he makes, which makes
Yeah.
sense.
In a way, you're sort of almost underpinning my major problem with the characters is because characters feel like at a certain point they know they're in a movie with with an action climax, so they sort of like straighten out. Like the character most to me is Philzy or Tim Robbins' character, because it's like this whole thing where it's like he starts out as this guy who's stupid and no one likes him, but then because we need an action climax, he just so totally buys into Howard and Beverly 1,000%, helps them with his biplane, and is their best friend. It's just like there's just total like whiplash of like, oh, we got to end the movie. Shit, he needs to help Howard. Shit, and it's just like, and then kind of the same thing. Beverly, like I agree that Beverly like is nice, but it's like it's almost that becomes the sole characteristic. And I feel like there's a lot of characters where they fit the role of the movie, but they don't fit a three dimensionality where you could like imagine them in real life.
He was friends with Beverly before the events of the movie happened.
Yeah, I mean, sort of like in name only. It didn't seem like especially Howard went from complete 180 to like not liking him to completely trusting him and they're chill. It's definitely missing some meat there, but
I mean, you're distressed with the plane thing.
I kind of feel like yes, the movie makes it clear that everything works out. My point is it's way too abruptly. Agree to disagree. Talk about dialogue. Foreshadowing my biggest problem with this movie. The supporting characters speak a lot of exposition, which happens in movies, but my biggest problem is Howard. Because you mentioned that, oh, Howard has this adult mind, he has a playgirl and stuff. But the movie seems to just vacillate to what Howard is in his dialogue. Like, sometimes the most effective Howard dialogue is like, oh, I'm going to criticize this thing that's going on in a very, like, clever way. But then he just spouts catchphrases. Catchphrases. So I felt a big disconnect with the dialogue. I felt like it really hampered a lot of the believability and the dramatic nature of the film as much as there was. So yeah, not a fan.
Yeah, I agree. It was bad comedy writing, to be honest. Where instead of because I mean it's Duck, but his dialogue should be like a normal person, and it's all over the place. Yeah, there's too much of a. It's the biggest problem with the movie overall. Is too much of a grab bag of the way people actions, and it's just consistency what is a critical part that's missing in his dialogue, among other things.
Yeah, like you say, just less of it, more cleverness would have been good. But yeah. So you could start by talking about the structure. How organized and flowy is the story, and does it follow a three act structure?
I think it does follow a basic 3-act structure. Introduce all the characters, explain why they're in their predicament, adding a villain, a clear villain, conquering the clear villain. It follows a basic action premise. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it makes sense. It's pretty simple. It's the same laser that gets our hero into Earth also causes a evil entity to come to Earth too. I feel it's been done in other movies.
Uh, no, I agree that like the action plot it's almost too structured, but that's still a positive. The biggest issue with me is the quote unquote comedy plotting, particularly in like the first act, because they had this movie about a duck who travels from way outside of our galaxy and is living on Earth, and they tried to normalize it onto like, oh, Howard's gonna get a job and he's gonna work at this club, and it just felt very 80s and very like, oh, well, I don't know, we just do the thing we do in other 80s movies too, and then I was gonna say something else. Yeah, in general, a lot of the it's just not a lot of believability in the plot. Like, I mean, like I don't know, on the one hand, it's a wacky comedy, but on the other hand, just like even trying to make the diner weird and people want to eat the duck. It's like all just I just felt myself taken out of the plot because it just I don't know. I think I summarized it best with the first thing I said, but whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, I'll go first on the pacing of the movie. So yeah, the self-explanatory, but speed at which the story unfolds. Um, this movie's kind of all over the place with pacing. Uh, like I said, I was a little bored. Oh yeah, the one thing I want to for plot and pacing too. When they go to Philzy's office at the anthropology office, and he's just so stupid, and they leave and nothing happened. I was just like, what? Come on. I mean, it's supposed to establish what that he's stupid. I don't know, but it's just kind of stuff like that where the comedy really dragged down the pace, which you think would be the opposite. And I felt like the action was the most like credible Star Wars-esque sci-fi stuff. So it's definitely a mixed bag of pacing. I felt myself mostly bored because the stakes were not super high, and they tried to rush in stakes at the very end, which doesn't really work. So, and all the scenes of the biplane, it must look so cool in '86. I was just like, oh, thanks for the tech demo. Just,
I thought the biplane sequence is fun. Um, Pacing wise, though, I agreed. It felt uneven and slow at times. They really could have taken out the part where he's best friends with Beverly and wants to stay with her, and then he loses that because of because I mean Phil is dumb, but Phil doesn't get Howard immediately, and Howard decides to go to him just because of that. Like it's a waste of his time. I mean, I guess there is urgency to get back to your home planet, I guess, but
yeah, but yeah, leaving Beverly's not going to get you to your home planet at all. That was just a bad idea by him. Yeah, yeah.
so a little uneven. Even the end sequence was kind of lame because it keeps using the same laser over and over again in different scenarios.
Yeah, it felt cheaper than similar movies. All right, you can go first. Talking about the tone, the overall mood and feeling of the script.
It's a very silly tone, which makes sense for source material and for a Talking Duck befriends the lead singer of a girl rock group. It gets weird. There should be no romantic overtones between Howard and Beverly, and Beverly desperately wants to sleep with him, and he has to be the one to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, back off." Well,
Yeah,
it's just, and then similarly, he gets attracted to the employment agency woman.
yep. Tries to bite her, well, stick his nose in her butt, or I don't know what he was doing. But, yeah, I agree. The tone was. I think the biggest issue with the tone is, well, aside from the adult stuff, which you covered fairly nicely, also the, I mean, same issue with the comic book too. You have a character who looks like Donald Duck. Is it meant for kids? And I mean, it's a simple movie, so it's kind of meant for kids. But then why are we showing side boob at the hot tub club? Why is there even a hot tub club? But that's a different topic. So it's just, it feels like intentionally alienating a large percentage of the audience who would like the movie. And I guess kids do like the movie because it shows boobs. They're duck boobs. But still, it's juxtaposition of audiences and even like the sort of action adventure of the third act with the biplane and the laser and the monsters and stuff. It's just sort of meandering because of the first half of the movie with its sketch comedy and dialogue. For the record, I think Beverly was also teasing Howard, but the movie did not explain that very well, so it's up for debate. But anyway, so yeah, it just kind of talk about the plot, how I didn't like that, how unstructured it was. Kind of same thing with the tone, where they want you to think you're watching a very good movie by the end, with a kind of Star Wars plot arc, but then it's just a mediocre movie for the first hour. So the tone is ruined as such. Yeah. I will talk briefly about originality, how unique and fresh the story is. I have to give this movie credit. Obviously, it did not sell to audiences very well how original it was, but I think it still comes across as absurdly original. Like you mentioned, pre-CGI, building a duck suit to make a protagonist, and the weird intersection of humanity, sexuality, and waterfowl. Listen, it's very unusual and unique. I think they almost tried too hard to be original with like Joe Roma's Cajun sushi. Like, who cares about that? But stuff like that. But the movie definitely has a. That's about it. The rest is generic '80s comedy to me. But
I was gonna say it's original in some of the details, like all the duck puns at the beginning with the movie posters and stuff. Yeah, because duck is not going to duck. Animated movies and stuff, there's barely any ducks except like Daffy Duck.
Donald, of course.
Yeah. But in terms of the basic plot of hero and heroine and sidekick and villain, it's kind of Indiana Jones-esque, which makes sense because they're both George Lucas.
As is Star Wars with the laser and stuff, but yeah.
So, in that way, I don't think it was very original. Typical blockbuster adventure action movie.
Yeah. No, the most original stuff is stuff I didn't like the bad jokes about getting a job and stuff. So you can talk first about marketability. This movie did not do very well financially, so it's kind of weird to talk about, but how the potential for this script to be produced and sold.
It's a hard sell to sell what it is. Because the source material, it's had to be one of the least well-known, if not the least well-known Marvel property at the time. And then they knew and they chose not to copy straight from the comic book how that was told. They were really so overall there was no consensus on how to do this, because in some ways it's Howard the Duck's like Donald the Duck, so it's kind of like a kid's character, but he's more edgy, but he's still in the major studio system. So how edgy can you get, and how edgy can you market the movie? And I don't think they ever figured that out, and that made a hard movie to market and a failure of the marketing.
Yeah, I agree that I almost feel like this movie is more marketable than Lucas slash Hyuk, let's say that name, or Katz gave it credit for, because like you say, becomes this weird watered down thing where, oh, we're gonna show boobs, but also make a kids movie, but also an action movie, and it doesn't. I don't know what the hook is for anyone other than, oh, I want a different 80s movie than the one I watched before, technically. But I do think this movie is very marketable on the modern side of things. Aside from the fact that if you made an MCU Howard the Duck thing now, it would just make money because it's just a thing. But also like a movie like Ted, I feel like this movie really misses that sort of Ted energy where it's like we got this character, he's got a point of view. We're not gonna muddy it by sticking him in a generic plot. Just let him go nuts. I think Ted, the movie character, is a lot closer to Howard the Duck, the comic book character, and so in that sense, it's very marketable. But I agree that like the fact that Disney slash Touchstone or whatever did this movie is just insane, and the product is obviously terrible, especially for marketability. Yep. I will talk first about the conflict, central struggle, or tension in the film. Uh, this movie has a very safe is in a good way, I guess. Like, I mean, it has a basic central struggle because you got this guy. Oh, the weird part is his home life was bad on Duck World, and he just wants to get back there. And they didn't really do a good job explaining why. They didn't show his duck girlfriend on Duck World, or they could have made a better movie out of that. But still, he wants to get back to Duck World. Beverly's nice to him. This movie does a fairly easy job of like laying down the stakes of like this is genuinely nice stuff. I think it could have been tighter and more tension ridden, but and the aliens they were stupid. That was not that was less tension than it could have been. Like well, they weren't scary enough because they didn't give enough time to be scary. The rancors and stuff. But overall, decent amount of tension.
Uh, yeah, yeah. I didn't actually know the plot that well. This movie, you know, it's been around for 40, just under 40 years now, I think. Um, was it the most I've ever been on the edge of my seat in a movie? No, it was too boring for that. But uh, he ends up not getting back to his home world. But I felt tension because I didn't see how he would get back home. It turns out he wouldn't. But um, and Phil and Beverly get zapped pretty good at the end. So I was worried about their well-being, so there's some tension there. And the subsequent demons are actually flying down. So it's decent tension that they might come down and actually reach Earth. So as good as tension as like the Indiana Jones and Star Wars that we've talked before. No, because they're just better structured and
Yeah.
better action sequences, better characters. But it wasn't zero, so I'll give the movie credit for that.
I mean, it's hard in most movies to establish the villains because, you know, they're bad, but this movie did a really lame job of being like, what do those demons want? Why are they demons? They didn't really do anything with that at all.
They probably should just call them aliens.
Still would need backstory.
No, but they weren't really.
Uh,
Demons have an aura to them because they're
Right.
demigods.
There's no satanic or anti-god aspect to them other than being bad guys. Even that wasn't clear. What was their plan? I guess world domination or something?
Yes, that's what they said that in the movie.
Which is not very original. That's different category. So there you All right. We don't have much else to do, so I want to talk about the other stuff with this show. So let's go quickly into our final segment. I'll go first. I'll say a good thing, a bad thing, one sentence review, and a score. We talked about both of these things, but my best part of the movie, easily, Thomas Dolby's songs. Are they the best songs he's done? No. Are they probably the worst songs of the songs I could say offhand? Probably. But still, Thomas Dolby is an excellent songwriter, does the perfect music I like with the techno stuff. So I was a fan of all of his Beverly Beans singing obliquely about Howard the Duck at the club or whatever. It was very cheesy, but the music was good. Bad, I mentioned it on the review part. Howard the Duck dialogue felt so close at times. The more realistic foibles dialogue was good, but then the goofy catchphrases like "Filzy, you're driving me crazy." It's just like no one needs that. It ruined the movie for me and sucked me out of it the whole time. So close, movie, so close. And my brief review. So I didn't prepare this. So I'll say the movie is inherently watchable because there's so much stuff going on, but it gets undermined. What is that noise? It gets undermined. Don't make noises. I mean, it gets undermined by a generic, loose plot and bad jokes and bad drama, bad action, bad sci-fi, bad everything. I can't recommend very much. I'll give it 2.5 out of 10.
Uh, you you didn't like it, but best part for me was the biplane sequence. I thought that was fun. Uh, they literally zoom. You're zooming too much. You're zooming.
Okay, it's fine. Just keep talking.
Uh, 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 biplane was uh fun sequence. The fact that the plane gets shot at and breaks and he has to repair it while they're flying. I thought that was a lot of fun. All the cops they ran into and stuff, and how low. It's actually cool, in my opinion, a vehicle to use because how low they can get. Because an actual plane can't get that low because then it would essentially crash. Since it's not, it's in between a glider and a plane. It can float in there. Other fun sequences, action sequences throughout were good too. Worst part is easily the Howard's sexual interests and human sexuality involving him. They should just cut that out. Not because they're trying to make it a kid. Not because it's a kids movie, because technically not. But because it just there's no really room in comedy for bestiality or anything close to bestiality, and they should just made him a character that has no interest in sleeping with humans because he's a duck. And it I think could add some funny dialogue, like maybe Beverly's into him, and he's like, "How come I'm interested in you? You're not the same species," or I don't know, something funnier than that. But I don't know. I think you graded it too low. It's a fun comic book romp. It's not the worst comic book movie I've ever seen. Thomas Jane's Punisher and Josh Trank's Fantastic Four was a complete disaster. It's not that level. It's a fun 80s movie. It's passable. So I'll give the ultimate passable score of middle of the road 5. Wouldn't recommend it, but if they did show random movies like this on cable, which I guess they wouldn't, it'd be entertaining for our viewers to watch.
So that concludes our segment on Duck. I want to briefly talk about the quote-unquote feature of the show. This will be a pretty short segment, but this is the season finale. We're gonna take a little break, although I'll talk about that in a second, because we're gonna have season 2 start in January, and we're taking a bold, audacious step into season 2 because me and Marcus I was getting a little tired of nitpicking whether to pick bad movies or Criterion movies, so stuff like all over the place. So trying to get a little direction. So we're gonna do something that I haven't seen that much. It's a fairly controversial topic. We're gonna dive in and discuss the positives and the negatives of the Razzie Awards nominating process by going through every single Razzie movie. And we'll go through things as they come along, but basically, format is gonna pretty much similar to this show now. Just go through each movie and review it. I am starting with the Best Picture winners and nominees to give more of a scope of the year, and then the more obscure movies that nominated for one award later on. It'll be fun. And so Marcus, imagine this. Imagine this. You're a moviegoer in the late 70s, and you're like, you get to watch a movie with 2 of the most popular people in the world at the time. Doesn't that sound exciting?
Yeah, fun movie with the biggest stars.
But one of them is an athlete, and one of them is a band with no movie acting experience.
Oh, I think about actors and actresses.
Yeah, the joke wouldn't work if I said a group of people, blah, blah, blah. But the first Razzie Best Picture winner in history, and one of the worst movies ever made, I've seen it before, you haven't, Can't Stop the Music, starring Bruce/Caitlyn Jenner and the Village People. Dun, dun, dun. It's pretty bad, but we'll get into it. And then, next week. And we'll try to give updates as I'm upgrading the show and stuff in future weeks. And we'll see you in January, I guess. Okay.
Happy New Year.
Happy
holidays.
Happy Cyber Tuesday. Bitch. Book me on your shows, or let's be best friends and hang out, maybe. I don't know.